Good evening, class. It is another opportunity. We're meeting together again for our online classes for Bio 313, Animal Ecology. I want to use this medium to welcome all of you. It's a thought on the series, and we have about 5 more weeks to go on this particular course. I've noticed that nobody has hooked up for the class today, so I'll be doing the recording. But before then, I want to give an overview of what we have done for the past 2 weeks. We started with introduction of this course, which has to do with the historical background of animal ecology, how ecology has developed over time, who have contributed to the development of ecology. That we have looked on our first topic. We also look at fundamental of ecology, so the terminologies that are used in ecology, components of ecology, the types of ecosystems we have, and so on and so forth. That was what we did in the first week, which included first and second unit of Module 1. Last week, we looked at ecology of terrestrial animals and aquatic animals. What are terrestrial animals? What are aquatic animals? We also listed example of these animals, where they can be found. And on our course materials, we have most of aquatic animals that are found in Nigerian water body. We mentioned a few of them. That was for last week. So for today, we'll be looking at growth rate and age structure of animal population. Growth rates and animal structure. That's what we shall be looking at today. Let me see what I can do. Let me see if I can lay hand on the recent file 20. Let me see what I can lay hand on any of your recent files. I can do the recording for today's class. Nobody has joined yet. Hoping before the close of today's lecture, most of the students would have joined me. Okay. All right. So what I want to do is to share what we're supposed to do today. Let's see. Okay. I want to share PowerPoint. All right. So I hope you have seen what I'm sharing with you. Let's start. evening, class. My name is Dr. Senawe Makukwete, one of your facilitators. I'll be facilitating on PALM 313, animal ecology. It's going to be an interesting class, an interesting topic too. So views that we get familiarized with what we shall be doing this semester. But we'll be looking at historical background of animal ecology, which has to do with terrestrial and aquatic animals. These will be compared together. We'll also be looking at the growth rates and age structures of this animal, possibly factors that affect the population. What are the measures that are used to estimate population dynamic? We'll also be looking at competition in animals. It is noted that there's always competition in these animals. So looking at them and what are resources that contribute to competition among these animals? Our topics will also cover population and animal ecology. We look at population strength. What are the factors that contribute or control population? And predator-prey relationship will also be examined, but things also affect population of either the predator or the prey. Lastly, we will be looking at behavioral ecology of African animals or mammals rather. That's the general behaviors of these animals with the environment. Of interest will be bats, which will be a case study of African mammals. So as you can see, it's a rich topic that we'll be looking at animal ecology. But all to also make this class lively and enjoyable. Thank you. Okay, so we are done with the introductory video that introduces us to what we shall be doing. Third on the series, growth rate and age structure. Growth, age, and age structure of animal population. And my name still remains Dr. Ime Esenewe Makukwete, and you can get me at imeesenewe@gmail.com. All right. What is population? Sometimes when we mention population, we only make reference to population as to humans. But then, ecological definition of population is a collection of individuals of same species that live together in a region. So species are not exclusive to humans. Sorry that the network disconnected us. Let me still share back. Where were we? All right. So like I said, that the human population are not just exclusive to definition of population. Population can also include animals, wild animals, and other animals that we know. So the population ecology is just the study of population and how they change over time. It is understood that population is not constant. It's dynamic. It changes. It will increase and it can also decrease, depending on factors that regulate this population. So it could decline because it's like resources, or it can decline because it is spread to another species that is increasing in number. So that's why I'm saying that it's dynamic. It will go up, it will also come down. And the maximum population abundance for a given species in an environment can sustain is what we know as the carrying capacity. That is the maximum number of a population that can be sustained at a particular time. Is what we know as the carrying capacity. Now, what about population density? Because there are different terms that are used in population study. We also know what we call population density. It's the number of people of a certain species per unit area. Density, it's a term that is easily understood when we talk about physics. Yes, Yeah, so when you add population to density, it means the number of individuals of a given species by unit area of volume. So population distribution pattern, it's kind of dispersed, spread around that area. And from there, one can easily extrapolate the population density of that area. The density and distribution of population changes with time due to factors. Yes, it changes with time due to a lot of factors. And what are these factors that we are these factors we are talking? It could be biotic, could be abiotic factor. And when we say abiotic, we're talking about inorganic factors. Because the other ones has to do with organic factors. So population size is just the number of people in the population. So those are the different terms that are used in describing population and what population is. Now, what are these factors that affect population? What are they? Although these are common factors that we know, it could be immigration, natality, mortality, or immigration. These are the four major factors that regulate population. And when these factors regulate population, they form a pattern. And that's why population growth exists in two patterns. In two patterns, it could be exponential growth or logistic growth pattern. And yes. So this slide here shows what we are talking about. When we talk about exponential growth pattern, it's only one reproductive chance is given to members of the same population during their entire lifespans. Once mission accomplished, they die. Many insects and animal plants reproduce in this manner. So exponential growth pattern exists when one reproductive chances is given to a member of the population during their lifetime for them to reproduce. And once they do that, off they go. Whereas the logistic growth pattern, where members experience many reproductive events throughout their lifespan, and most vertebrates and trees have these patterns of reproduction. So you can now understand why these differences in the pattern. As we go on, we're going to see them. The graph on this page shows the exponential and the logistics. You can see the exponential growth. Have you seen the you've seen the exponential growth? And one thing with exponential growth, it's always very rapid. You can see the graph here, first one. Whereas the second one shows the logistics, it gets to a phase. That phase is what they call the carrying capacity. Carrying capacity. And that phase, it's when the population can be sustained because of available resources in that environment. It begins to decline. And that's what happens in an exponential growth pattern. As population grows, there's always a mortality pattern, or what we also know as survivorship curve. That is to mean that when people or when species in a population reproduce, there's always mortality. And there's also other groups that also have to survive. And these ones are tailored or are shown in a curve. So a cohort of a population, when you hear a word cohort of a population, is a total number of new births of it at the same time. Okay? Cohort means the number of new births at the same time. Whereas survivorship is the probability of newborn individuals of the cohort surviving that particular age. So when you talk about surviving, they have an age group. species of the same population survive. It could be when they're young, it could be when they're old, or when they are dying. So which group of this population do you think can give a different survivorship curve? And we have so many of these, about 3 major, but so many, but up to 5 of these survivorship curves, but 3 are well known. But before we go into details, we want to ask question. On class activity 1. Which growth pattern does human population exhibit? Yes, which growth pattern does human population exhibit? It's a question for class activity, and I'll be giving you a minute or 2 to see how and what your responses are. All right, so hoping you've been able to sort yourself out. We want to move. Now we'll talk about age structures. Yes, this is a number of individuals in different age classes. We have 3 age groups. We have what they call pre-reproductive, reproductive, and post-reproductive. So it means that the pre-reproductive cannot be productive, and the post-reproductive after they have been reproductive. So those are the 3 major age structures we have. And the one funny thing about these age structures or characteristics that exist is that we have the short-lived organisms and also the long-lived organisms. And the short-lived organisms increases rapidly with short span between generations. That's one characteristics with the short-lived organisms. See? Whereas the long-lived organisms increases slowly and have long span between generations. One factor with the short-lived organism is that they could be found in insects and other lower invertebrates, whereas the long-lived organisms can be found in higher vertebrates like humans, who can live, at least who can live up to 80, 90 years or 100 years. And they have a long span between generations. That's one characteristics with this group. Now, what are the factors that determines individual age? You know, I know you ask, how do you know? What are the things you look at? What are the indices you look at when you're determining age of any species? Mr. Latunji Abulode, you're welcome.
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you, sir.
You're coming in late for the class.
Yes, sir.
Good to see you.
Yes. Yeah,
I was expecting
likewise,
this. There was the guy who came in last week, but I didn't see him this week.
Yeah, okay, sir.
All right, so I've already gone to 5 because I needed to record, started 7 on the dot, so I needed to record even though I don't see anybody in the class.
Okay, sir.
All right, so I'll just give you an overview before I round up. At least I still have about 6, 7 slides to round up. So what I did was to introduce, we're looking at growth and age structure of animal population. And I started with the fact that population is just a study of individual species.
Okay,
study of individual of the same species in a population, same species. So sometimes when we talk about population, what we easily associated it human, but then we'll also have to undergo study of animal population. as far as they are of the same species. So it could be species of dog, studying their population, the species of snakes, bats, and so on and so forth. And went on to talk about factors that these populations are dynamic. They are not stagnant. You can't see a population of just one over 10 years or two over 20 years. It changes over time. And I said these changes are because of some factors. So these factors could be abiotic or biotic factors, inorganic or organic, depending on the habitat you're looking at, because whatever abiotic factors you're looking at in the terrestrial will be quite different with the aquatic environment. Okay? You know, you don't have oxygen in water. What you have in water is dissolved oxygen. Same with water temperature, but atmospheric temperature. So those are abiotic factors that are considered in regulating population. And what fact you must understand is that any change in these factors, any of these abiotic factors, can change a lot of things about the population. It could affect their age, it could affect their growth, it could affect their reproductive years. A lot could happen just because of any change in this factor. So, and I go on to say that as this population changes over time, there's a pattern it follows, that there is a growth pattern, and we have two fundamental growth patterns in a population. Either is an exponential growth or it's a logistic growth. And I said an example that most of the exponential growth patterns you see are some found in lower invertebrates like insects. You will see the populations, they will increase quickly, isn't it? They will increase. Are you with me, sir?
Yes, I'm with you, sir.
Okay, because it has to be an interaction. So I have to know if you're following me. So,
I'm following you, sir. I'm with you.
All right, the exponential growth patterns grows quickly, rapidly. And before you know, the individual species that produce this will just die within a short period of time. You will never see insects living up to a year, even months, more than 2 or 3 months. It's just weeks. Yeah, whereas the logistic growth pattern are the ones that they take time to grow over time.
Okay.
There was a graph. Okay, good. The graph I showed you. This is an exponential growth. You can see the growth.
Okay.
Are you seeing my?
Yes.
Yeah, you can see the rapid growth. Yeah.
Yes.
The first chart here shows a rapid growth. There's a lag stage. Yes, the lag stage is that they've not reproduced to increase in population. At this stage, you can see at this stage 4.2 or 4.3. Good. That's a stage. There's a rapid growth to here. Okay. One thing with logistic growth is that they get to a period, they stabilize. They call it stable equilibrium, as you can see.
Okay. Yes.
Stable equilibrium. Stable equilibrium or carrying capacity. Another I'm going to use is carrying capacity. It's a stage where the population and the resources. That's the stage the population, the resources can accommodate this population. And let me put it that way. That's the stage the resources you will have can accommodate this population. So it cannot grow more than this.
Okay.
And when they now exhaust all the resources, what will happen is that they will just be declining little by little, because if you don't see any food to eat, you won't produce, will you? No. If the resources are not like water and food, it will be difficult to reproduce. So the first class activity I did ask was that which growth pattern does human population exhibit?
That should be the logistic growth pattern.
Thank you very much. It's a logistic growth pattern, right? So also then after that, I went on to talk about age structure. I said there are 3 classes of age structure. We have the pre-reproductive, reproductive, and the post-reproductive. As the term says, you understand the pre-reproductive cannot reproduce. They are preparing to reproduce, isn't it? Reproductive, those ones are ready to reproduce.
Yes.
And the post-reproductive. And this structure determines efficiency of a population. Now, if you have much of pre-reproductive, what do you think will happen to that population?
The population will be stagnant.
Good.
But with time, once they attain the
No,
reproductive
you've
stage,
used the language I needed, stagnant or stable.
Yes.
It's not
Yes,
green.
sir.
It's not green because nobody is reproducing, isn't it?
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
what about the reproductive? What will happen to it?
Well, it will increase with time because they are reproducing.
No, it will
It tends to
eventually increase. It's not with even
Yes.
with time. You may talk of pre-reproductive increasing with time because they will now go to a
that's true.
stage they can be reproductive. But now
Yes.
for reproductive, they are ready. As you see, so they are
They are
just ready to
mm,
reproduce. So it means it's increasing. But what about
yes.
post-reproductive? What happened?
There will be decline
Good.
or stable. It depends.
No.
It can be
They
can
can't be
decline
stable.
or stable.
No, they
Okay.
can't be stable. They can't be stable. They have to decline. They are no more reproducing anymore. And their age is
And that's
so
why I
at
use
that
the
stage.
word stagnant. Okay.
When you
What
say
if none of the population dies? I think they're supposed to be
there's
stagnant.
a population that will not die. Oh, please. There's a population. You remember what I said? I said, look, there are a lot of factors that comes in. That population is dynamic. It's not stagnant.
Yes.
At least a
Yes,
year
yes,
or
yes.
two, something will come in. It's just like what is
Yes.
happening to the ravaging human population.
Yes.
So as an evidence, the outbreak of the disease naturally has reduced. So you know how many people have died from the population?
Millions.
You know how many people have died? Yeah. So
Yes,
for the post-reproductive, it will decline because the aged, those from 60, 70 are more vulnerable to die than those of maybe 1 to 15 or 20 that are not reproducing,
20.
isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Good. So we said that in this group, there are two groups of animals, those that are short-lived organisms and those that are long-lived organisms.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Yes, clearly, sir.
Those of the short-lived organisms increase rapidly with short lifespans between their generation. And these ones are categorized under exponential groups.
Yes.
The short-lived organisms increase rapidly. It's just like, flies. Good. Yeah. But what happened in a few months? Do you see them again?
No.
They just go up. They can just die. All of the population cannot just die off immediately. It's possible. See?
Very, very
and there's
possible.
always a gap, a short gap between this generation. Whereas for the long live, they increase slowly, just like human population. How many years does it take for humans to mate? Let's be realistic. How many years?
It depends on culture, but averagely, it should be around 17, 18.
Good. Okay, normally, well, let's say because government said from 18, you can decide on your
Or
own.
let's say biologically, we can say 14, 15. Yes,
biologically. All right. Very well. You mentioned it depends on culture but as far as someone, because a woman is ready to reproduce, fine.
Yes,
fine. But ideally, I think 18 is okay because even government recognize anybody from 18 to make decisions on their own. Good.
Yes.
So, but they grow slowly and have long span between generations. You can imagine. There are times you can see a gap in between this and that, isn't it?
Yes.
Good. So that's what we talk about. Then I said, so we went to this page that you came in. We said there are different factors that is used to determine age. I know for humans, there's a way you look at humans and say you look like 18, 19, isn't it?
Yes.
You look like 19, 20. But there are times you may not even be right, with the assumption of the age. So it's not always acceptable in biology. So these are the few points from your course materials that can be used to determine the age of individuals, especially because we are talking of wild animals, not humans. So we can use marking. You can mark the animals that are marked. That mark may
Okay.
signify the year the animal came into existence.
Okay. Okay.
Are we together? Some we
I will
can
be together,
use,
sir.
all right, we can use samples of their carcasses, and they are experts in them. It's just like recently there was a skull that was found. I don't know which of the country it was found, and they said they're trying to backdate it to about how many years human existed. See, so you can use carcasses of the animals and individuals. You can use replacement of teeth, wears and replacement of teeth of these animals. On their teeth parts could be picked. You can use anal growth rings. There are some rings, growth rings in horns of sheep.
Okay.
Okay. Plumage changes and wears in beds, especially their feathers and the rest.
Feathers.
Pick a goat. They can pick the feather and use it to know which how old such is. And for fishes, we can also use growth rings in their scales. Okay. Have you eaten fish before?
Yes.
Okay. When you hit the head of the fish, have you eaten the head of the fish before? There's something on that skull that looks like a stone. Have you eaten the head before, and as you smash it, as you munch it on your mouth, there's
yes.
Do you know what they call that stone?
Yes.
You know what they call the stone?
Huh? No, I don't.
Okay,
no, I don't.
They call it otoliths. Otoliths.
Okay. Otoliths. Okay.
Yeah, that's what they call it. That stone can also be used to measure the age.
The age. Okay.
Yes, of fish. Because one thing with scale is that the fish has to grow to a size you can pick the scales and measure. Most of the fish we catches doesn't grow more than some few months, not even years. Except fish that have grown over time, then you can pick the scales. The scales have to be very visible for you now to measure. Although there are various there are methods of measuring the scales, different methods, but that's not for our study now. Measuring the scales. So you can also use scales and otoliths in measuring the age of fish. So I was talking about reproductive, and post-reproductive. Now, you can now see what we're talking about. Look, have you seen the charts properly?
Yeah, I can see it.
Now, you see the base. The base here is for pre-reproductive.
Yes.
And the reproductive age, you've seen it.
Yes, the next ladder. Okay.
Good. Now, a reproductive age, that is high, will also affect productive age because they are growing to be productive. You understand?
Yes, with time.
And this shows an expanding population.
Okay.
Are we together?
We are together, sir.
Now look at the other point I was talking about, pre-reproductive and productive. Like you said, the pre-reproductive will be stable over time, because if we have more, as you can see, almost same size with that of reproductive. Then the post-reproductive, as you can see, this population is just stable. Very stable. Have you seen it now? Now, if you have a population that is most of post-reproductive, have you seen what will happen now? You've seen it. You've seen the up here. The yellow one shows more of post-reproductive. You have so much old people maybe from 70, 80 years. Where are they going to reproduce? When are they going to mate? So it shows that population is declining. And that's what we've seen in this C. So Nigeria, which group do you think Nigeria belongs to?
That should be the first group.
The first group.
Expanding population. Yes.
Good. And I think stable population, I don't know, there's never been any, except it could be found in the wild. But then in stable population, maybe resources are not available enough. So over time, this population will just be steady until resources can now accommodate, and the age group now expand, especially the reproductive age group has to expand so as to produce more. Now, that's why, okay, that was what we talk about the growth, the lab phases, exponential growth, and the equilibrium. I think we'll explain this on that chart. Hello, we'll have explained this on the exponential growth and the logistic growth pattern about the lag phases, the exponential growth phase, and the equilibrium phase. Now let's look at factors affecting population. Factors affecting population. Yeah, and these are biotic factors: birth rates, the number of individuals giving birth over a period of time, isn't it? So if a population does not have more of a productive group, it means that that population would not increase. If a population has more of post-reproductive, it means that the death rate will be very high, isn't it?
Yes.
So the age composition too matters. See, so if you have a age composition of just pre-productive or pre-productive, it means that such population will just be stable. It won't grow.
Stable.
And immigration, as we know, movement in and movement out, and that is allowed. That is allowed in wild animals, not like humans, where before you move out, you need a visa. Before you come in, you need a visa. Then we talk about carrying capacity. We talk about carrying capacity. And like I said, carrying capacity is a number that can, can be accommodated because of available resources. So that's why you see in bracket, resources is mentioned there. So if resources are available to a point to carry the population at that peak, it's what we know as carrying capacity. And we have natural calamities like outbreak of diseases, flood, typhoon, and the rest. These also affect population. And the last one was, sorry, I added abiotic factors. Abiotic factors that affect population. And those abiotic factors are what I want to mention here. Good. Like water, availability of water. If you're spending hours to go and look for water, the energy that you would have used for reproduction will be wasted. Are we together?
Yes.
Good.
We are together. Yes.
Yeah. The energy you would have used for reproduction would have been wasted. So if water is available, you feed water here, you see water to drink and the food, this will also be positive to population growth. Gravity, high gravity, especially the topography you are, this also affects population. Pressure, these are all physiochemical parameters. We call them physical and chemical parameters. Are we together?
We are together,
sir. Temperature, salinity, water current. I'm mixing both those on land and those in water.
Aquatic.
Yes. Salinity, as we know, these are the different salt level in water. What fishes that are found in the marine environment may find it difficult to adapt in fresh water because of the salt. And this may also affect their reproduction. Water current, if water current is high, it will be difficult for such fish to reproduce. And that's why you see that most of these fishes will come, most of the fishes in the marine comes to fresh water to lay their eggs, they spawn to reproduce in fresh water because the environment is conducive for some of them. And when the tides in the fresh water is low, the fishes will now move them to the seawater. Whereas the eggs they've laid will reproduce and grow after sometimes, they go back to the marine environment. Temperature, and so there are so many factors. I just had to pick these few ones so you can look at your course materials to see other factors that we're talking about population growth. So the second question activity, which I want to, how do you estimate the size of a population? How do you Now we'll talk about population. How population is done. How do you estimate the size of a population?
Yeah, in human society, I think sensor is one of the ways to estimate the size of a population. Yes, sir. I think for humans, the sensor, but for animals, I think there should be other which I'm not aware of.
Why do you think there should be other methods? Why can't we use sensor in estimating population of animals?
Well, since most animals are migratory in nature, especially the wide ones, and because of that, it may be very difficult to count animals, except if such area can be mapped. But in human population, women are easier to control, so one can easily um, um, count humans compared to animals.
All right, thank you. I love your answer. Thanks so much. I needed that input, even though you may not easily find the answer directly. You see, it's difficult to count animals because some of them, yes, a sight of seeing you, they will run, they hide. Then another thing is that it's difficult because you cannot count. You can count and recount the same number of species again because they can easily mix up with the population. So we call them sampling methods. There are so many different sampling methods that you can use. There are those of direct count, just like humans in sensor, we call them direct counts in animals. But for the case of direct counts, the numbers are not much. So you can easily look at, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You understand what I mean?
Yes.
You can just do direct count for a population that is not much. But for a population that is much, the estimation is you can do sampling. You can just pick what they call random sampling. Are we together? Random sampling. So what you only pick is you can just pick a small number, maybe like 5. A 5. You count, this is 5. Then you measure the area.
Okay.
You measure the area and multiply the number by the area to get your estimation.
Okay.
That's what we call random sampling. But in the case of random sampling, you have to be very careful because there are a lot of, there's a lot of, there's a word I want to use so that you really understand what I'm trying to say. It won't be as if you're giving a preference to a particular group.
Okay.
It's as if, so there's what we call bias. You need not be biased when you're doing estimation using random sampling in animal population. So you have to be very, I'm not looking at the fact that, this animal likes him, that's why I'm taking the sampling. No, but it has to be with the fact that you're just looking at it as if it's just same. Because one thing with direct counts and random sampling is that direct count takes time. Random sampling, it's easy. You can just pick and estimate the population. Are we together? It's cost, it's cost effective as compared to count. And another thing is that it doesn't take much time. So you can just use some few seconds and minutes and do your estimation. Whereas for direct count, you have to pass through and make sure all that you've seen has been accounted for. There are other ones because what you're going to use in land will not be in water. Are we together? You cannot use estimation. What we do in that of water is what they call mark recapture method. Mark, to mark something and recapture again. So it means that you pick a sample from the water, you mark it and return it back. You pick another group of sample, which will include both the mark and your mark. Are we together? Yes. Now you look at the difference and do your calculation by the volume area of the water you're looking at. So there are so many methods of estimation of population, and that has all been included in your work. But I just tried to add it to at least to have an idea that animal population can be done with direct count or random sampling. Those are the two major ones. So that is what we have for today, class. Thank you for listening. As usual, I'll have to play before maybe.
All right, sir.
Okay, so it's good to see you, Mr. Latunji.
Yeah, good to see
I
you
was
too,
looking
sir.
forward to see at least if I could have someone. I don't know what's happening with this class. It's been off and on. One will be coming and one will not. I met someone last week. I think someone joined me last week. I can't remember the name.
Okay, sir.
And I was thinking of seeing it today. But you got my message, my link to this class. You got it?
No, I didn't, sir. Though I saw one of your messages, but I think the link there didn't work. So I have to go through the
The link didn't work.
the website. Yes, so I have to go through the
The
e-portal.
course material.
No. There's this portal.
Your course, your own page,
now.
the e-learn
Yes,
platform.
e-learner. Yes. I went into the
Are
e-learner.
you serious?
And again, it seems you passworded the access. So some must have forgotten their password. So that's another issue. But there are some classes that I've attended that there's no need of putting password. Like myself, I forgot my password last week, so I just have to ask request for another password through the Zoom. So I was sent another one to get the password. That should be one of the factors, sir. So if you can remove that.
I will check. What I will do, I will check the setup and see if I just authenticate the password that only those with password can come in, because it's not always done. It's just the link. Okay. Normally, it's always when you click on the link, then you come in. Link. I'll do that. Then I will now resend to all the students who register the link again, please. I'll do that.
That'll be okay, sir.
So that's for today. Next week, we're looking at measurement of population dynamic, how it's measured. And we're looking at life table and K factors. That's what I'll do. I will upload some of my video. I'll start uploading them this week. That's what I will do. I don't want to do like what I did last time. I'll start because the workload is too much for me. I'm having another class, and you have to do the e-library platform where you can link up. So much activity. So I'll do that. Then you go to discussion group. But today, I will start by tomorrow to open the talk for today's for this week discussion group, so you can also make comments, please. Okay. All right. It's a pleasure, Mr. Latunji. Hope to see you next week again, please. But don't forget, at least you guys have access to our interface on the e-learning, so you can just look at it and see what you can also learn, please. Okay, sir. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time, sir. Thank you, sir. Good night.